Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. It appears that the market is somewhat in free fall. However, back into the cryptoverse, it is interesting to note that Bitcoin is actually holding up the best, which, essentially just reminds us yet once again how, Bitcoin is king of the market, right? It simply is king of the market, and there's really no way around that. Let me just post this in a few different places, and we'll go ahead and jump in and see what the hell's going on here. So, all right. So, yeah, I mean, the market looks pretty weak right now. Bitcoin is actually holding up by far, for the most part. There might be some coins out there that are doing better, but for the most part, Bitcoin's holding up the best. It's still 22.8. It's really not even that far below 23K. The rest of the market, however, is just getting absolutely destroyed right now. Ether is back down to 563. You can see negative 11%, right, fairly recently. Link is back below $9, around $9 or so it's also not holding up at all. So what do you guys think? I mean, I don't want to only come on live whenever the markets are doing great. That's of course the easy thing to do, but I will remind you, when the markets are in free fall, capitulating at the bottom tends to not work out. I mean, obviously we're not at a bottom right now. In fact, the market is still relatively inflated. But waiting until we get all the way down here and then capitulating or something would be a very poor choice, most likely. Okay. Now I'm not selling, of course. I already sold what I wanted to in terms of Bitcoin and any other coins that I was taking profits on, but we'll see where things head. I mean, right now, Bitcoin's back above 23K. It's still possible that that alts bleed for the rest of the year, and then Q1 rolls around, and maybe things will change back. But for now, it does seem that most of the market is essentially in free fall, and I guess it's more important to say it's in free fall. Not only against USD, of course, but also against Bitcoin, right? Everything's essentially in free fall against Bitcoin. I mean, Ether, the Ether Bitcoin ratio is, it's around 0.0251. Okay, so it's currently around 0.0251. I believe. Now it's been a while. I believe that's where the 20-month MA is. Yeah, so it's essentially right at the 20-month Ether Bitcoin moving average, right? And the reason why we talk about this one is more so just because historically, during a bull market, it seems to be able to hold some level of support, and during the bear market slash accumulation phase, we were essentially unable to break it in any sustainable manner for 5 months. Okay, I mean, note we had wicks below it here, we had a wick below it here, but that might be something to just keep an eye on as we see where Bitcoin takes us. Now, one of the things we want to remind you is this is yet another sobering reality that Bitcoin is king of the market. And there's no way around it. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. It has been, and it always will be the majority of my cryptocurrency portfolio, because you see how easy it is for it to shake out like every other coin, right? I mean, how easy it can be. So again, my opinion, not financial advice. As we navigate this market cycle, which I think will take place over the next several years, it's just a good reminder that Bitcoin is the king, and that completely ignoring it in your portfolio, it tends to not be a great idea, just because of the fact that when Bitcoin volatility is high to the upside or the downside, altcoins bleed. When when it's testing the 20-week moving average, altcoins bleed. There's only very few phases where altcoins really thrive. in terms of the entirety of the altcoin market. So that's basically where we are, right? Bitcoin is coming back down slightly, but it's still a far cry from the 20-week moving average, and that's what a lot of newcomers to the space might not necessarily understand. Like if you entered the space in, say, after March, if you entered the space after March, then so far you haven't really seen any major dump, right? You haven't seen anything like this, and this is not a major dump. I mean, Bitcoin is still at 23K, but one thing you might want to consider, and again, we're not saying this is going to happen. I still think there's a great chance that altcoins do fairly well in Q1, right? I think there's a decent chance that altcoins do well in Q1. Maybe there's a lot of people are waiting to take their Bitcoin profits until Q1 so they don't have to pay taxes on it as soon. But I still contend that altcoins could still do well in Q1, and that again, with the turnaround point, as we've seen for Ethereum in bull markets, and again, you have to determine whether you think this is a bull market or not. In bull markets, the turning point for Ethereum has been January, and not a moment before. The two major times where it turned in December against Bitcoin was in a bear market, or at least that was the beginning of the bear market. We just didn't know it yet. So, hopefully we'll see Ether turn back around in January. So far, it's basically just continuing to get hammered as Bitcoin volatility has not. I mean, you can look at the weekly chart and see that Bitcoin has just not really given any other coins any breathing room, right? They simply have not given any other coins any breathing room, and has been mostly moving up monotonically on a weekly time scale for the last how long? All the way back over here. So for the last 12 weeks, so about 3 months, Bitcoin has moved up 130%. It has not moved sideways at all. Every single week, we talk about the idea of it starting to move sideways, but so far we have just simply not seen that happen. We have not seen that happen. But one of the things that I think is interesting too is that there have been times in the past where Bitcoin dropped down. So here's an example where Bitcoin rallied in February of 2017. It rallied all the way up to $1,375, and then it crashed back down to the 20-week at around 940. And despite that crash, Ether managed to do okay during that time. And back in January, the first quarter of 2017, we know that Ether did quite well. Okay, so right now Ether's at 574 or so. Link is below $10, so Link has especially gotten hammered. ADA negative 15%. Where was Link at? Yeah, Link's at negative 25%. Part of this could be due to the, I don't know, but the SEC filing against Ripple, right? Against Ripple Labs. It's leading the charge here at negative 49%. And, my gut feeling on that is a lot of people are just overreacting to, and maybe it's not an overreaction, but that tends to be the case, right? A knee-jerk reaction to these types of things, and it could just be, that news could just be kind of moving throughout the market, right? Because if they're going to do this to Ripple, then maybe they're going to go after other people. So it could potentially set a nasty precedent, right? If they're somehow able to say that, oh well, Ripple was selling unregulated securities or something like that, and they win, then it could set a precedent that spooks the market, right? There's no guarantee they're going to win, but that could be, that could be what's spooking the market. But again, I tend to not dabble too much on the news, just because, no matter what happens in the market, you can always find some news tidbit to blame it on, right? Whether it's, whatever it is, right? There's always something you can blame it on. Same thing with like traditional markets, right? If the markets are up one day, it'll be, the stock market rallies on hopes of a stimulus. And if it's down the next day, it'll say the stock market crashes on fears of no stimulus. So it's all about how you tweak it. And that's basically why I don't really talk about the news. It's just because I feel like no matter what happens in the market, you can twist the words in the narrative of the news story to fit the bill. So anyways, the markets are down right now. There's a lot of risk, right? I mean, entering the markets, there's a lot of risk involved, right? We know this. With that said, I mean, if you're in it for the long haul and you recognize that we're going to be here for a while, and that as I've showed before on the pinned video on my channel, we're likely going to have, an extended market cycle, and we're going to be here for a while. There's going to be periods of euphoria. There's going to be periods of fear. There's going to be months of just slow accumulation where nothing happens and people start to get bored. There could be one day Bitcoin's at $40,000 and it's been at $40,000 for 3 months, and people are just bored of a $40,000 Bitcoin. And then at that point, a $30,000 Bitcoin becomes bearish, right? But for now, the markets are still relatively early on in the market cycle. We're not even in 2021 yet. So even if you subscribe to, say, the 4-year cycle theory, we still have a year to go. Okay, so even in terms of that, we're still fairly early on. You might wonder, should you buy here? Again, I can't offer financial advice. My opinion, of course, is to just stick to the risk levels. And if the risk levels are lower than what your tolerance is, then there's no reason, in my opinion, as long as you have a longer macro outlook, there's no reason to just not stick to the plan. And we don't know how long it'll take for you to see, for you to realize a return on that. Of course, it could take a month, it could take 12 months, it could take longer. But the point again is just accumulating the cryptocurrency when the markets are down and when there's fear, and then whenever the markets start going back up and they get into this bubble mode that we've seen throughout the last year. Several cryptocurrencies went through this, speculative bubble phase. That's when you want to be on the lookout, to potentially sell rather than chase the pumps. So, I mean, in order to get to those points where Bitcoin or the rest of the market is, when it is significantly overextended, in order to benefit from that the most, you have to be accumulating when the markets are down, because if you're the one accumulating once the markets are already propped up and overextended, then it becomes a much more of a gamble, right? I mean, like if your cost basis on Ether is, say, $650 because you just started accumulating, maybe you're a little bit worried. If you've been accumulating for the last year or two because the risk levels have been low, and your cost basis is, say, $250, then you're not as fazed by stuff like this, right? You're just simply not as fazed by it. And in fact, I mean, I'll say this again. If you think this is bad, right? If you think this is bad, I promise you, and I say this, having lived through many of these these Bitcoin bubbles, these altcoin bubbles, you simply have not seen anything yet if something like this spooks you. You simply haven't. And you go back and look at, say, the last, you go look and look, say, like the daily time frame, right? Since this peak, it was a pretty nasty bear market, right? And this bear market extended negative 95% down over a year for Ethereum. It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. And then we came back up, and we rallied 400% over half a year. And then we came back down 66% over half a year. And then back up 127% over 2 months. And then negative 70% over 1 month. And then since then, it's mainly just been all fun and games, right? 527% over 289 days or so. And we know that this rally could continue, right? We know this rally could continue. We've talked before about, theoretically seeing a turnaround point for Ether against Bitcoin in Q1. We're not in Q1 yet, right? I mean, we're in December. So there's still, I would say there's still a little bit of hope in terms of potentially seeing the market turn back around in Q1. Because as we've seen before with Ether, and these are monthly candles, right? This major monthly candle was in January after a pretty significant bleed. This one in January after a pretty significant bleed, right? So we had 5 monthly candles in a row that were red, followed by 3 major green ones that took us higher than these 5 candles that came down. And then we had 3 red monthly candles for Ethereum, and this is against Bitcoin, followed by 6 monthly candles in a row that took us up, and these started again in January. You go to the next one. This one started in December, and this was the bear market. So we made a video recently saying, well, the 2 major times that it moved in December were actually in bear markets, right? Because you also can go back and look at this one here. This one started in December, but it also extended into January. But this was the beginning of the Bitcoin bear market, right? December of 2017 was the peak, and then from there we came down significantly. So that one started in December. The next one also started in December. Last year it started in January. So far, it's pretty evident that it's not starting in December this year. But maybe next month, maybe January will bring a different tune to it. And I mean, there's no mistaking that Ether is significantly down against Bitcoin, which I mean, again, is another prerequisite, right, for Ether to do well is to see a significant bleed in Q4. So right now, Ether's down about 38% against Bitcoin over the last 3 months. So pretty significant drop there over the last 3 months. And I'll just remind you, right? If you're new to the market and you don't think Bitcoin is worth holding, I will remind you again, it is the king of the market. And while we can look at these markets and say, there's a good chance Bitcoin goes to 6 figures, really there's no guarantee of anything in the market, but you can't look at any specific other random cryptocurrency and know exactly that they're also going to perform well, because we've watched Bitcoin shoot up over 130% over the last 3 months and not give altcoins the time of day. So with that said, the point of this video, right, the point of this live stream is not to scare anyone, of course. I'm still very much bullish on Bitcoin. I think it will more or less trend up over the next several years, though I do contend there will be several nasty corrections along the way, and we have not seen one yet. The only correction we've had, which is more or less a modest correction to the 20-week, was back in August, and it took us 20% down to the 20-week. And that was scary. That was a scary time, of course, for people that are especially new to the market. But that's par for the course. And a 20% correction to the 20-week is about as tame as you'll find bull markets, right? This correction is about as tame as you will find bull markets generally for Bitcoin. Again, looking back, most of our corrections were, 35%, 40%. This one to the bottom was 33%. Here was another one that was 41%. Here was another one from the top that was 37%. And then the final one where we broke through to get to the 20-week was a 50% drop, and we ended up dropping over 70%. Okay, so I just want people to remain level-headed. Remember, don't invest more than you can afford to lose. Protect yourself in some sense by making sure, not that it's financial advice, but if I were trying to give my former self advice from years and years ago, I would say, to make sure you have a decent amount of Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin should ideally exceed other cryptocurrencies. And it's not to say that having a portfolio of mostly Bitcoin, of say more than 50% Bitcoin, will necessarily give you the best return, but I would contend that it would give you the best risk-adjusted return. And that's ultimately, that's ultimately what is important, right? Is that you want to grow your wealth, but you want to grow it in the most risk-free way possible. In fact, I wonder if I have these. I probably don't have them up anymore. But anyways, hopefully that makes sense. So Bitcoin's the focus, of course, right? It's the main focus because that's the one we know we can ride. Ether, secondary, right? Ether has great potential, and it's my number 2. And then it continues down the line, right? Link number 3, ADA number 4, dot number 5, and so on and so forth. So I would say, if you're here for the long haul and you're not too bothered by days of negative 10%, negative 20%. Ether's down about 9% now. Link negative 18%, right? And it's business as usual. It's business as usual. And in fact, Link coming back down could give some people the opportunity to get back in who have been waiting to get into the market for a while. And it looks like Ether Bitcoin right now is still right around that 20-month moving average. So we're right on top of it right now. And again, the only reason we're talking about that is because, again, when we were in the bear market, it was these 5 monthly candles that held that level as resistance. And we said whenever we break it, we should be off to the races. And in fact, we were. We just made a video maybe 2 days ago, yesterday, talking about this moving average that, it might be a decent line of support if we come back down. We're testing it now, right? We're testing it now. Of course, we'll have wicks below it. This is a pretty big test, I think. Hopefully we can hold this level. So Q1 starts in a little over a week. Usually Ether makes its move, first or second week of January, if it's going to make it in Q1 rather than December. First or second week of January, typically speaking. So that means maybe a Ether breakout within the next 2 weeks, if history is any indication. Again, there's no free lunch, there's no guarantee. We're just saying if history is any indication, then maybe an Ether breakout against Bitcoin in the next 1 to 2 weeks. If it were to break out in the next 1 to 2 weeks, what that would imply, if you told me that Ether is going to break out against Bitcoin in, say, 3 weeks from now, and then you ask me, okay, well, if you know that Ether is going to break out in, say, 2 or 3 weeks, what would need to come before that? What would you think the rest of the market did? Well, the two major things, there's two main ways that I think we would get there. Okay, there's two main ways that I think Ether, if you just told me that Ether was breaking out against Bitcoin in the next 2 to 3 weeks and said, okay, this is what happens, tell me how we got there, I would say one of two major scenarios would play out. Either Bitcoin starts going sideways here, and it could be between 22 to 24K. Either it starts going sideways here, or the other thing that could happen is if Bitcoin were to simply have a major correction in the near term. And I mean negative 30% or something, negative 40% in the short term. And the reason why we say that is because when Bitcoin dumps to the 20-week, right, when it dumps down to that level, Ethereum would bleed significantly harder than Bitcoin. But once it gets down to whatever the local bottom is going to be, Ethereum would then likely rebound a lot quicker than Bitcoin. So I would say the two major ways we get to a Ether breakout against Bitcoin in say January, maybe the first week or two, maybe by the third week of January, the two major ways would be Bitcoin staying range bound and not giving up too much ground, right? So staying range bound maybe between 22 to 24K, scenario 1, or scenario 2, just rip the band-aid off, right? Rip it off, get it over with. Let's see it come back down to the 20-week moving average. When that happens, Ether Bitcoin would most certainly capitulate even more. But if it holds the 20-week, like it did here, then there could be, if it does bounce, right, then that could lead to an Ether Bitcoin bounce as well. So those are the two main ways. Again, when I talk about these markets, it's the fear. The fear is ultimately what you have to buy into, not the greed, not the FOMO. You don't chase the FOMO train, right? You buy into that fear. The fear that the SEC is going to start making it so that all these cryptocurrencies, at least centralized ones anyways, which obviously most of them are not, but it does negatively affect the space, right? If everyone starts to starts having to register these cryptocurrencies as digital securities, or because if they're currently unregulated securities. So yeah, I mean, I think that more or less conveys what I want to say. Treat it as an opportunity. As I've said before, bull markets can make you money, right? We know that bull markets can make people money because everyone is a genius in a bull market, right? If you just put 1,000 different cryptocurrencies on your wall, throw a dart at the wall, you're probably going to hit one that goes up, 10-20% that day in a bull market. In a bear market, there's not so many geniuses anymore, right? It becomes a lot harder to figure out like what the hell's going on. It takes a lot of discipline to continue putting money into a market that seems to be bleeding. Bull markets make you money. Bear markets can make you rich, because the same way the people that were buying, and if you guys follow the channel back in March, the people that were buying down here, the people that were buying down in this region, Bitcoin, they're already up 5x. They're already up 4 or 5x from where they bought. If you were one of the, if you were, say, someone that that subscribed to the theory that Bitcoin has to be above 10.5K before you buy into it, I think that's a silly. I thought, as I said back then, I think that's a silly thing to say, because you're essentially missing out on all of this action, saying, okay, I'm not going to buy it until it breaks 10.5K to make sure that the bull market is in full force. The downside to that, of course, right, is, well, the people down here are already up 2 to 3x by the time you finally bought in. So when you see it go up another 2x from where you bought in, for them, that's up 5x. And then the people that are buying up here at 23K, they would have to see it go to 46K before they're up 2x. But the people, if you're buying at 23K, then to go up 2x, it has to go up to 46K. But the people that bought at 10K, by the time it's at 46, they're already up 5x almost. And the people that bought at 4K are up 10x. Therefore, the selling pressure mounts, right? The selling pressure mounts. So just to give you a quick idea, I think this is fairly intuitive for most people, but just to cover it in case, just to paint the perspective as well as I can. If it were to continue to rally over the long term, right, and continue to go up over the next several years, the pressure to sell will continue to mount. Okay, and the people that bought down here are going to have a hell of a hard time not selling their asset when it's up 10x or 30x. The people over here are obviously going to want it to go higher because they're not up as much. The people that are buying at 23K, they have to see it go to 50K before they're even up a little over 2x. The people that will one day buy at 50K have to see 100K for a 2x. But the people that bought down here in the bear market are already up 25x. So the selling pressure from these guys is insane. Once it gets up to those levels, then the selling pressure from these guys starts to add on to whatever these guys are selling. So then eventually you get to the point during the bull market, right? And maybe it would be best just looking at the last bull market. You get to the point where you have these guys that bought in over here, and they're just holding, right? They're just holding. Maybe they take profits on the way up and rebuy the 20-week in the event that they want to do some swing trading. But by the time it gets up here, definitely some of these guys are taking profits, right? Definitely people over here taking profits. Then you get up here, and you have even more of these guys taking profits, and then you also have maybe some of these guys taking profits. Of course, there's always day traders scalping. And then you get to the top, and now you have all these guys wanting to take profits, and there's not enough new people to continue the rally even further, and so then it comes back down, right? And then it starts to come back down, and then these people sell whatever remaining they had, probably, or at least for the most part, and then just they call it a win. Maybe they sold some up here, maybe they sold a little bit later, and then you have the guys up here at the top that bought at the worst possible time. They feel trapped, they watch it go down, eventually they capitulate, and you start the cycle over again. So, remember, bull markets can make you money, bear markets can make you rich. You haven't seen nothing yet, right? As we said before, this is absolutely nothing in terms of a drop, because Bitcoin is still, even today, Bitcoin is still 37% above the 20-week moving average. Imagine what the altcoin market would look like if it dropped. Imagine that. I mean, just imagine where all these altcoins would be sitting in that scenario. But again, as long as you recognize the risk associated with it, and you just systematically DCA into the market, recognizing that the market should head up, to, I would like to say $10 trillion market cap, plus or minus a few trillion, right? What's a few $1 trillion among friends over the next several years? Then just slowly accumulating the coins that you want to, the projects that you want to support, the where you think the best ROI will come from, given the risk. Okay, it looks like I got disconnected. If you guys like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. I did not even realize we have 2,700 people watching the show. I don't think I've ever even had close to that before. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and check. It looks like my connection. I feel like every time I get to like 2,500 viewers, my connection just like goes out. Like I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I'm being throttled in any way, but it seems like anytime we get to around 2,000 people or so, the connection just starts going in and out. Not really sure what's going on, but yeah. So, anyways, in any event, if Bitcoin holds these levels, then there's going to be some fear, of course, as we continue marching on. But as long as it holds it, I still think there's a potential Q1 move for Ether against Bitcoin. And actually, right now we're still holding that 20-month MA that I think is important. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Everyone's saying Link is dead. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look dead to me. It looks like more of the same. Looks like more of the same. We have capitulations. We have all sorts of stuff. I mean, this drop still pales in comparison to some of the prior drops we've had. I mean, if you look at the March drop, from top to bottom, we dropped about 70%. In that week or a couple weeks. So, and from the top of the prior week, we were down like 72%. This week, to the bottom, we were down about 40, but right now we're at about 22. So, I would say when the markets are dropping, if the risk on them is within your risk tolerance, then it's okay to buy into the fear. It's okay to buy into the fear and have a long-term outlook on it, and recognize that, you know what, you might lose money in the short term, but we anticipate these markets to trend up over the next few years. Especially things like Ether. It's absolutely gotten hammered against Bitcoin in Q4, just like it always has. You know, and if you just say take a look at all of the, let's go from wick to bottom wick of October to December. So in the first year it was negative 57%. In the second year it was negative 67%. In the third year, it turned around in November. It was negative 47%. The next year, starting in October to the bottom here, was around negative 33%. And then in this month, in 2019, to the bottom, it was around negative 20%. So every Q4, we've seen between a 21% drop to a 67% drop, and all everywhere in between. Look at this: 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%. Literally, we covered the spectrum in terms of Ether drops against Bitcoin in Q4, ranging from 20% to 70%, essentially, and everywhere in between. And this one is currently at the bottom. It was at 40%, right smack dab in the middle, basically, of what we've seen in the past. And in fact, 3 of the years were worse so far than this year, right? 3 of the years have actually been worse. So just something to keep in mind, of course. Just stay level-headed here, pragmatic, systematic about the markets. We'll see where things take us. So, how far did we drop? Because it was a pretty significant drop. I was trying to get the live stream going. Yeah, so it looks like we had a capitulation down to 550 for Ether, and then a bounce back up. For Link, sorry, I just had to block someone who was spamming the chat. For Link, gosh, it went down to $8, right? $8, and now it's back up to 10.34. ADA went down to 12.5 cents. Monero went down to 147, and it was just at like 169, 170, just shy of 170. So you can see the entire altcoin market had a pretty significant bleed there against Bitcoin. So we have one more week of December. We'll see if the altcoin market can survive until January, and see what happens in January. And again, we're still more or less holding. You can see that the 20-month Ether Bitcoin moving average is 0.02509, and that's where we currently are, 0.02508. So we're right on that long-term moving average. Can you guys hear me still, or is the video glitching at all? Are you guys still good? Can you guys hear me? Okay, it's smooth. All right, I went out a couple times. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you guys like the content, and give the video a thumbs up. Let's get to 80,000 subscribers. I think we're at 73,000. So if you guys enjoy the show, make sure you guys subscribe. Let's try to get to 74,000 subscribers by the end of the stream. I think we can make it. Well, we need another 400 people. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at the daily RSI, right? Let's look at the daily RSI for Ether Bitcoin, because I guarantee you it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, so we're going to scroll out. And we're going to go look at this. We're going to make it thick so you guys can see it. So this is the daily Ether Bitcoin RSI. You can see in December of 2015, it came down to 31 before turning around. In December of 2016, it came down to 21 before turning around. In December of 2017, it came down to 24 before turning around. In December of 2018, it came down to 24 or 25 before turning around. In December of 2019, it came down to about 20 before turning around. And right now, we are at 24. So, with that in mind, if we were to take where we currently are and go across 1 year, we turned around sooner. 1 of the years, we turned around. 2 of the years, we were lower. Okay? So 2 of the years, we went all the way down to around 21 before turning around. And then 2 of the years, we turned around right here. This was the bottom. Right, 2 of the years, this was more or less the bottom. So the daily RSI is at just around 24. And the Ether Bitcoin valuation is at 0.0251, which again also corresponds to the 20-month moving average, right, at 0.02509. So maybe we're getting close to a bottom here. We'll see how the markets play out. Obviously, it will depend on what Bitcoin decides to do, but that was a pretty impressive capitulation wick here, down to 550. So maybe that shook some people out. But if you watch this channel, hopefully that wasn't you being shaken out. And that doesn't mean that Ether can't go down to 550 and then go down to 540 from here. It just means that by principle, on principle, not selling the fear candles, not selling the FUD. Selling into strength is much better than selling into fear, because oftentimes when you sell into fear, there's a decent probability over the next couple of days that it just bounces back up, and then you have to go chase it. So I would say, generally speaking, it's not good to sell into fear. So I mean, keep an eye on Bitcoin. We're still at 23.3, and we'll take it from there. So Link is still at 1040, about 1050 or so, and ADA is still actually holding up at around 14 cents. Yeah, I mean, XRP just got absolutely destroyed recently. Absolutely destroyed. It's now at 26 cents. It had a wick all the way down to 20 cents. The XRP Bitcoin valuation all the way down here at a historically low level. Right, this is these levels over here, back down into this region, back down to a valuation of around 1,000 Satoshis. It got absolutely destroyed recently. So maybe you could see it as an opportunity, but I will leave that risk up to you to determine. We'll see what happens. Link has bounced back pretty significantly, because I mean it bounced back from $8, and it's back up 30% in like an hour. It's not too bad. I mean, look at that. That's a 32% bounce in an hour. I wonder what Ether is up. So Ether had about a 6% bounce in the last hour. So Ether bounced about 6%. Link bounced 32%. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive bounce by Link there. Just remember, if you spam the chat, you're gone, right? You're gone. Whoever's spamming the same thing about Brad, you're gone. What questions do you guys have? If you guys wouldn't mind, make sure you subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. Yeah, Ethereum did not drop nearly as much as some of the other altcoins did. I mean, from just say looking at that single hour, it dropped around 8%. Link, on the other hand, during that hour dropped 28%. So pretty significant drop. So you see how it pans out, right? And then if you go to Bitcoin, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin here. So during that same hour, Bitcoin dropped 3%. So when we talk about risk, a lot of times we're talking about volatility. And you can see that Bitcoin, the volatility was the lowest at around 3% or so. Ether volatility was around 8%. So you're paying, it can theoretically yield you a higher ROI, but you're paying for it with more volatility, more risk. So again, Bitcoin was at 3%, Ether was a 8% drop, and then Link was a 27% drop in that hour. And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm a big bull on Link macro. Like, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the short term, but 1 or 2 years from now, I feel like there's a fairly decent chance we'll look back and think of $10 as a pretty cheap Link. I mean, it's easy for me to say that now, of course, because, it's so far off in the future. But, I do think that it does have a bright future ahead of it. So, I mean, a $10 Link, I feel like, is I mean, it's a decent spot, right? And could drop lower. I mean, it was at $7 earlier a few months ago. We came all the way down to $7 here. Here we were at $8. Here we were at $9. Or so. So that drop took us all the way back over here, right? That's where we were. So we haven't been that low since September. So yeah, pretty impressive drop, right? Pretty impressive drop there for it to drop 30% that quickly. And you can see, I mean, Bitcoin is back up, but what happened? Bitcoin was at 23.3. Bitcoin dropped lower than 23K. Everything dropped, but most things have not quite recovered, right? I mean, Ether is still down below 600, despite the fact that earlier today Ether was at like 613 with a Bitcoin around this level. So you can see it continues to get shaken out. Sorry, gotta hide some people that are spamming the chat. Sorry, just someone said the link RSI, the daily one's at the lowest it ever has been. I'm not sure if he said link USD or link Bitcoin. Was it link USD or link Bitcoin? I mean, link USD is, yeah, it's pretty low. Doesn't look like it's the lowest it's been though. So maybe you're talking about link Bitcoin. Maybe this one. You can see it's come well down below. So we don't even need to look at this one anymore. At least not unless it recovers. So we'll look at the RSI. This is the daily one. This is a week though. This is the weekly time frame. Yeah. It went down to 17. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll try to make it a little bit brighter. Right, so that's the link Bitcoin daily RSI. I mean, look at that capitulation, down to 17. I kind of want to switch this back to the weekly and see where this is. Yeah, that was a pretty nice opportunity on Link. I mean, I'm curious who all scooped up some Link for like $8 or $9. Was there anyone in the chat buying Link for $8 or $9 an hour ago? Looks like a lot of people did. We'll keep an eye on Bitcoin here still. I mean, you know what'll happen, right? If it starts to go down again, you know what'll happen. So we'll make sure to keep an eye on it. Yeah, Link Bitcoin got destroyed. I absolutely destroyed here. Look at that. And if you just look at the, I mean, that's a really nasty wick. I wonder if we're gonna look back at that wick and see it as a historic opportunity, right? I mean, we're still in it. I mean, we're not even fully recovered, right? We're at 45,000 satoshis, and a wick down to 35,000. So that was a pretty crazy wick down there. So, all right, what questions do you guys have? Remember, you buy into the fear, not sell into it, right? You sell. It's better to sell into strength than fear. So I just want to make sure that that you guys are on the same page there. Some people are asking about Litecoin. I think Litecoin held up pretty well, right? Yeah, Litecoin held up pretty well during that drop. I said I don't hate Litecoin. I mean, I said that with Bitcoin being above its prior all-time high, I understand buying Litecoin. In fact, I recently got some myself, believe it or not. So I'm fully on board with the Litecoin train if it wants to leave the station. You guys, I've seen a lot of people say it in the chat. So you guys think this is going to kick off alt season, the final capitulation? It might, but I mean it's gonna depend on if Bitcoin can hold here. That wick looks really similar to I mean, this is the March wick, right? Straight down. This one was a tempered version of that one. Ether's climbing back up slightly. I mean, it was at it was at 0.02509 not that long ago. The wick took us all the way down to 0.024. What other questions do you guys have? It looks like Bitcoin's back at 23.4. It does not change the fact that altcoins did bleed against Bitcoin during that time, but we'll see if they can recover. Ether's still below $600, which is pretty impressive considering Bitcoin's at 23.4, and impressive in a bad way, right? Not in a good way. Link is rallying a little bit from, I mean, all the way from $8 back up to almost $11 now. Remember to subscribe to the channel, everyone, and give the video a thumbs up if you guys like the content. We also do have a Telegram channel that you guys can check out, and I'll put that in the chat as well. So check out the Telegram channel if you guys want to join a chat community. Wondering if Link can come back above 11. I mean, that's a pretty impressive bounce. A 30-something% bounce that quickly. Some people are saying that DOT did okay. I haven't actually looked at DOT in the last little bit, but yeah, so DOT's still at 470 or so. So yeah, I'd still say DOT is more or less just in accumulation territory, and remains to be in accumulation territory between this range. Alright, Terpsy, I guess I'll have to block them for spamming as well. There it is, Link's out, well, it's back above 11 now, so pretty impressive move there. The Link Bitcoin still at 47,000 sats though, so it's going up with Bitcoin, I guess. For the time being, it still seems that Ether has bounced off that 20-month Ether Bitcoin moving average, which I think would be a pretty bullish sign if it can hold that level. All right, maybe we'll wrap it up soon. The market is we're at 23.4. It looks like most everything bled against Bitcoin during that altcoin minor capitulation. Ether is still at 0.0252, so slightly above that long-term moving average. Link has bounced back to $11 after falling down to $8. So congratulations to anyone who got that. Right, who was able to, well, especially if you're able to scoop that up. So yeah, why don't we call it there? Maybe we'll come back on later. Well, I just wanted to see if the market's going to start moving. I mean, Link's moving a good bit here. It's back to 11.16. Seems pretty still for the most part, except for Link. We'll call it the the SEC altcoin capitulation. I mean, personally, I would just like to see this continue, right? Watch Bitcoin chop sideways for a while, and eventually the altcoin confidence should return. Link is continuing to rally, down from $8. All right, I think we'll go ahead and call it. Maybe we'll jump on a little bit later. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to catch future streams. Give the video a thumbs up. Remember, we do have a Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below, and I'll put it in the comments as well. And then we also do have the premium list for exclusive for more content like weekly reports, weekly videos, the risk dashboard, the indicators, all that sort of stuff. So check that out. We'll wrap it up there. Maybe we'll come back on later and see kind of what transpires from here, and see if this is maybe a wick to start a little bit more confidence in altcoins. So we'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you later.